This Nickelodeon throwback of Sarah Boone in 1997 shows us just where her life could have led her, as she was full of potential and she was bright and outgoing and optimistic. People spoke highly of her and they truly enjoyed her presence.
Hey! Sarah likes to hang out at the mall. What do you do while you're just hanging at the mall, Sarah?
Check out guys and spend money.
Your cash or like parents' cash?
Mine.
No!
Navel orange.
Navel it is. Yeah, there you are.
Sadly, Sarah went from this, an all-American girl type next door, to this.
Sarah, I can't breathe, babe.
That's on you.
Yeah, Sarah Boone faces the possibility of life in prison.
The video showing Torres pleading for help from inside the suitcase.
Boone says the pair were drinking during a game of hide and seek. She claims she fell asleep. Sarah Boone's day in court has been delayed.
I can't believe how bad she looks and how bad she's aged in these 5 years. She skipped her 50s looks-wise.
At first, I didn't have much luck finding Sarah's information because she was very private on Facebook until I found her maiden name, and then I was able to find many photos of her throughout the years. This is what Sarah looked like in high school, and it's such a far cry from today. Somebody even posted a photo that they had of their yearbook where Sarah's photo can be found. Many people were eager to post photos and experiences that they had had growing up with Sarah over at Reddit and on Facebook. Sarah grew up in Florida where she remained until the crime occurred, and this is a photo of her yearbook from Edgewater High School when she was approximately 18 years old. And she looks so different. She actually looks so sweet in these photos, and that's what some people said about her. This is her throwback from Nickelodeon as well, and we see a completely different image of Sarah here. A woman came forward on Facebook with the following image of her and Sarah and told everybody that they used to be best friends and they had kept in touch, and Sarah was always extremely nice to her. She couldn't fathom why Sarah would do such a thing, and she was even seeking the advice of people online if she should reach out to Sarah and ask her what her side of the story was, because it just didn't fit the person that she knew. She said she would even make trips to see Sarah, and people were telling her that yes, she should come forward and reach out. Here we see a photo of Sarah with her ex-husband Brian Boone, who is a marketing and advertising professional. Many people saw him on the body cam and they were questioning how could he have possibly been with Sarah because he seems just so professional. But they were together, they had dogs, very similar, except it didn't work out, which I think he was very happy about, and he's very lucky.
I believe it was around 2005 when we got married.
Did your marriage with the defendant last?
No, it did not.
When was it that you separated and began proceedings for divorce?
Maybe it was 2006. I think the divorce was 2017. I believe.
I don't believe that I've ever had a connection with anyone like I have with George.
Did you have that connection with your ex-husband?
I did not.
Was it even close?
No.
Sarah mentions in court that George was a greater love than Brian, a fact that I don't think that he would mind, because he talked about how she would get extremely aggressive with her claws and her drinking issues to police.
When she drinks, that she can get physically aggressive.
She can. I mean, she did it to me a lot. She's tiny. I mean, more arms. She many times would use her claws. I mean, I had scratches on my neck at times, on my arms. I mean, things like that where she'd dig with her claws. I never got that drunk, and I had restraint. I never touched her back. I think George didn't have that restraint. For all I know, all the times he got arrested, she started it. I don't know. My alimony and stuff basically pays for where they lived. They didn't need a ton, but I mean, she was always calling to borrow money, and Yeah, it's been like 2 years since she got a job.
The Boone's co-parenting relationship seems amicable and cookie-cutter, but the cracks are exposed when he's so eager to divulge Sarah's dark side to the detectives, and I believe that this comes from a sense of self-preservation and having her out of the picture permanently to provide for his son alone. Brian seemed like a nice guy who provided so much for Sarah Boone financially, but it also appeared that these frustrations went back many years. Since he met her in the early 2000s, he had 3 foreclosure cases where she was listed as a defendant, and additionally, he would pay for her bond and her court fees, which is shown in some of the Orange County clerk's records. So I think that once this opportunity arose, Brian just wanted to be done and in the clear for self-preservation so that he didn't have to constantly be in the hole dealing with Sarah and her drama.
If George was able to, he would drink from sunup to sundown. Me having my son and trying to work and maintain the home and just have a life.
Slow down. It's starting to catch up with you. Slow down. Slow down.
Sarah hadn't been a functioning member of society with a job in years, but the mental gymnastics that she had to do in order to convince herself that George was the problem was next level. Brian mentioned that his alimony would provide for them, but that George would work 15 to 20 hours a week, and he was so proud of his job at Ace Hardware, calling himself the best employee that they've ever had, and it was mentioned in the interrogation that he was devastated by this fact. Also, Sarah always talking about them doing arts and crafts seemed kind of like a cringe excuse, but it was in fact true that George did like art. These were some of his drawings, and Sarah and him would engage in these types of activities sometimes. You can see the paint stains in the video of the crime scene as well.
They actually used to do a whole lot of arts and crafts inside of the townhome. And again, they had their good times, their bad times. Sometimes he would instigate the situations. Majority of the times, Sarah Boone instigated the situations. And she ended up with bruises, but that's more of him like kind of pushing her off of himself.
Did they both drink a lot?
Yes, in excess. They didn't drink to drink. They drank to sunrise to sunset.
When you love someone, you go above and beyond, and you tolerate, and you endure, and you persevere.
I don't have this idea.
You said you threw in the bushes. Where in the bushes did you throw it? Could you please go look over there?
It should be somewhere in here if they didn't find it. I don't have it.
Did you have much interaction with the defendant or with Jorge Torres in this case?
Honestly, I avoided them as much as possible usually.
Sarah never loved George, but they tormented the neighbors with their drunk antics. Some people truly did love George though, his family, and Sarah didn't like the relationship that he had with them and their closeness. He had 2 children, it looked like, based on his Facebook, but only one of them wanted to be identified. His family had to undertake the difficult task of defending his character publicly in the media because of some of the things that Sarah said about him and about them, which they found inappropriate.
His brother and his ranting mother came over here, so... I told you it's because I'm the blue-eyed white dragon, that's what they call me, because they don't want him with me.
The white dragon words were chosen very carefully in order to make them seem like they were hateful, and I don't believe a single word that Sarah said about his family or that they ever referred to her as the blue-eyed white dragon.
She was very much jealous of me for what reason I'm not aware of.
Sarah was jealous about everything in George's life, from his family to his friends, and this is apparent in the vitriol that she unleashed in text messages to him regarding his Facebook. Despite the fact that she had no social media presence, she tormented this man every day of his life.
I don't even know what happened. Did she hate her? All the time. She does all the time. All the time. Today. I thought about today.
Sarah got George in the court system through restraining orders so that she could control everything that he did and hold it over his head that she was bonding him out and getting him out, but she was the cause of all this.
We never had physical altercations. We would have normal husband and wife family spats, never to the point where police were ever involved, DHS was ever involved. We were never that type of family. I can't relate to Sarah. I want to say the only thing that I can say about George is that he was a ladies' man.
This is an actual post from George's Facebook that I had to censor because of YouTube, where it kind of confirms the fact that he was a ladies' man or he liked to admire women, but that is not a valid reason to end somebody's life and delete them from this earth. And you could see that Sarah, in her text messages, was always extremely upset about what he did on Facebook and what he posted. At one point, I guess he posted a passive-aggressive thing about how you're supposed to walk away from a relationship, and she had mentioned that, and she also mentioned the fact that he would watch porn and other things.
Huh?
Twas.
Twat?
Twas.
I like twat. I've been trying to get twat from this woman.
It's hard not to feel sorry for George in the last clip shown because he clearly just wanted physical attention and intimacy from Sarah that he was not getting and he constantly had to wait for.
Then he started to pull on me and kept saying that, that I just want to you on the steak and you on the potatoes. I took offense to that. I kept trying to encourage him to eat.
That line of thinking just made no sense to me. She just wanted him to eat? Like, huh?
Just let me know where you're going.
And I get to leave the house.
Yes.
Exit.
Just let me know where you're going so at least I know where you're at.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I love you.
He told me again that I'm not going anywhere.
George never restricted Sarah's movements. In fact, she gaslighted him, and then she came up with another lame story about how they were sword fighting, and I think that this speaks to her other really lame excuses about coloring or hide and seek or other types of play. It just sounds like very kindergarten type of stuff from a very weird mind.
Trying to come up with a story of what I can tell them when I go down there so he's not in trouble and telling him that it's okay. And I came up with the story of that we were sword fighting silly after drinking with our steak knives.
We've seen time and time again with defendants such as Jodi Arias that anytime they get up on the stand and admit that they had lied before, it has catastrophic impacts on their case because it shows that they have the ability to just lie at any time, and it makes anything else that they say less credible. The issues that Sarah and George had with police began in 2018, and some of the last calls occurred in 2019, but that was prior to him actually succumbing to her cruelty, and she had written him so many terrible texts that were shown about how he's made her feel ugly and about how he was sending old photos of his Peter to women that he was interested in and telling them that he wants to sweep them off their feet and all types of things. While I don't doubt that maybe he did have the wandering eye based on the information given by his ex-wife, I still think that Sarah should have just let him be and moved on. They caused such a scene in the apartments that they lived at.
There was another night, sorry, I forgot to tell you about this too. I got a call for one of my vacants in building 24, 4724, which is not the building. There was a tent set up on my vacant back porch. And it's apparently where George was sleeping for a couple of nights because she had him out of the house. And I have seen both of them intoxicated as early as 9 o'clock in the morning, and I mean staggering, falling down, intoxicated. Both of them. There was a noise complaint that I had received. Sarah was actually wandering around the property very drunk, barefoot, not properly dressed. I went to see them Monday, roughly about 12 o'clock. They were sober. They apparently had had some epiphany.
After the crime occurred in 2020, the management company had to file for eviction to get Sarah's name off the lease. So once again, a very dramatic turn of events and another financial loss that somebody was faced with due to Sarah. Time and time again, we heard that Sarah was the aggressor, instigating all of these interactions, and in the following clips, we get to see just how mean she was to him, recording him constantly when he was supposed to be in the privacy of his own home.
You can stop filming now. Love y'all, whoever watches this video.
No, that's not approved.
The FDA says it's approved.
Get away from me.
Huh?
You do everything to me all the time. Heartache and pain.
How is that?
Keep going.
That was your function, dude. Malfunction. No, your malfunction is you, dude.
Okay, whatever you say. Whatever you say.
So you don't want to press charges? Okay. Hands behind your back.
For what?
For battery domestic?
Me?
Both of you.
Is this for real?
This is for real.
Why am I in trouble though?
Because of
Why
the
am
marks
I in
he has all on his neck and the inconsistencies
That's
of
me
the story.
fighting back. Why? Because I fucking fought back?
In the last clip, we see Sarah being confused about why she's being arrested because she wanted it to happen to George solely, but the behavior that she exhibited on this day was absolutely terrifying. Just like the revelation during trial that he tried to escape from the suitcase and she shoved him back in. She needed this as an overt act, but this pattern before he succumbed in 2020 was getting increasingly more volatile and more dangerous, and it's just horrible to see what happened. Standing over George like a lunatic screaming "get away from me" didn't work in her favor. We see this when the trial finally takes place in 2024.
Each time the trial was scheduled, it got rescheduled again and again. The main problem, Sarah's difficulty with her representation. 8 different attorneys have tried to represent her.
Ms. Boone is correct. She has walked out of the last 2 visits when I've tried to review things with her. She has lots of lists, lots of questions. I have taken collect phone calls from her that are at my expense.
Please, no one's interrupted you this morning, Ms. Boone.
If she walks out of every conference that I have with her, I'm not sure what that says about the attorney-client relationship.
I don't understand what it is that she has against me. I have told her from day one that her snotty attitude was inappropriate. I'm not saying that I'm trying to remove her. I'm just trying to ask you, please, if you could please let her know, please, to just be nice to me and have a welcoming attitude, and things will probably change, and I will not get up and I walk out.
After a falling out with 8 various court-appointed attorneys, Sarah decided to do what she does best, arts and crafts, in order to recruit somebody new in hopes that they would want the limelight of her case. And shockingly, she actually found somebody that would be up for this. After just numerous arguments, walking out on her attorneys, being a complete diva, and also getting on bad terms with the judge, which is not a great thing in my opinion, which I'll discuss later because I think that even with second degree, her sentence could have been a little bit lighter, but she screwed that up. James Owens was that lucky man, and despite some blunders and weird moments in court, he seemed to get on very well with Sarah Boone.
The man who answered the call, the man who will, believe it or not, represent Sarah Boone.
And I would ask that we honor the local administrative order and call people by their surnames and not their first names. What matters...
You're referring to surname. What do you mean by that? You mean...
That means last name.
Okay, what did I say? This detective?
Keep calling the defendant by her first name.
All right. Can I say Sarah Boone?
Either Miss Boone or Sarah Boone, that's fine.
One of Mr. Owens' main strategies in court was to attack the lead detective, Chelsey Koepsell, who was pregnant at the time, and she was also very sick, and some people were criticizing the fact that she had a cough and that it had cleared up and she was not being very professional. He hammered on that she didn't recall specific details, despite the fact that she probably has a huge caseload.
All 9 questions is
Correct.
No, I did not read all 9 questions.
Do you know how many questions you did read to her?
8.
Okay.
During trial, it was extremely disturbing and terrifying to see Sarah recall how she had zipped up her lover into his coffin, essentially, and her dismissiveness and Karen-like attitude, saying, "Sure, I guess it was like that."
About right there, ma'am?
Sure.
Some of the body cam incidents were shown during the trial where she was saying, "No, why, please, I don't want him arrested," but she clearly knew that this was going to be a consequence of the action she was taking since there was a restraining order in place. And then there is also the fact that the plea deal of only 15 years was a huge gift because 30 is the minimum, and she mentioned some tidbits which I felt were actual moments of truth of how George was truly nice to her.
George was nice to me. George complimented me. George was very passionate. George was a very real person.
Did you love George?
To this day,
Did you drink too much?
I did.
Did George drink too much?
Yes.
Do you understand the state's offer to resolve this case? Yes. Okay. Ma'am, understanding the state's offer, do you wish to accept or reject the state's offer to resolve this case?
Reject.
So we did make attempts, like everybody does in every case. Any prosecutor, any criminal defense lawyer, public defender, you have plea negotiations. So there were attempts to settle it. I was kind of like a mediator.
Regarding the plea offer, it's not just 15 years in the Department of Corrections. That is an offer predicated on a particular circumstance. Coming to court and saying, "I am responsible for George Torres's death, and I accept the punishment." And because that consideration was never given in this case, the offer of 15 years in no way represents what this case is worth, or what George Torres's life is worth.
30 years seemed like the minimum amount of time to be able to parole on a second degree, but most often people would be sentenced to 30 years or 50 years in Florida, something that Sarah did not get because she was just not very pleasant to deal with, and I don't think that they wanted to show leniency for her because of how horrifying this crime was. So Sarah ended up receiving life in prison, which is ironic because she rejected the plea deal and she thought that she was smarter than everybody else, and it's exactly what she deserved. Sarah consistently humiliated George. She called the police on him. She tried to create a case that would put him away for many years, but she got the same in return. She took George away from his family and his children that deeply loved him, and all George wanted to do, in all of his flaws, was love Sarah. He even told her in some of the clips that he wasn't a woman, but he wanted to understand, and it must have been so frustrating to deal with her day in and day out until she finally zipped him up in that coffin so he would never see the light of day.
Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me.
Sarah's going to be an inmate for the remainder of her life. She tried to rewrite the events like it was some Shakespearean tragedy, when it was her, by her own doing, that created this situation. George didn't deserve to suffer. This was a truly tragic and difficult case to watch, and I hope that his family somehow finds peace. And as if Sarah's final statement trashing George was not bad enough, she's written letters to the judge saying that she wants to come home, and she's also been disciplined for bullying and manipulating the other inmates and having to be removed from various programs, something that Tanika's 2 Cents reported on. I go by Ultra. Thank you so much for your time with me on this channel, Wild Ideas Media. I hope you had wonderful holidays, and I do hope that you have an awesome start to your new year. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.